Hi, guys. How's it going? Matt from Foul Ball Productions here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you're doing well. I'm doing phenomenally. Thanks for asking. The Mandalorian. Disney's last hope. The last hope of Star Wars. Is it? Is it the future of Star Wars? Is it a detour until we get back on track? Will Star Wars ever get back on track? But the most compelling query I have is, do I give a shit about any of it? I don't know, but that's what I'm endeavoring to find out by watching and reviewing every episode of The Mandalorian. We are in episode 6 here, the Bill Burr episode. Interesting. I didn't hate this episode. I thought it was, I don't know. I thought there were ups and downs, good points and bad. We'll get into all of that. But before we do, please use your Jedi powers and force push that like button. And if you're feeling extra saucy, press that subscribe button too. It means a lot. Thank you so much for all my returning subscribers, and for all you new people. Awesome. Thank you. Please consider subscribing. Lots of new content on the channel as often as I can manage it. I try to pump out new stuff, doing some live streams, doing some movie reviews. Lots of me talking to a web camera, speaking my mind. So I hope that interests you. Thanks for joining. All right, let's get into it. So this episode, I think about 50% of it I really did enjoy. I think about half of it was actually quite good. There was moments where I was like kind of caught, not I won't say caught up in the tension, but I was like just watching it. You know, just sort of like into the story, watching the moments. I like the way they explored characters. I like the way they set up the situations. Then by the end, I don't know. It just what it became like this. The second half for sure, it was just sort of like, wow, there's a lot of inconsistencies here. So it starts off with him, you know, because this is the continuing adventures of the Mandalorian. He lands in some hangar, some like space station floating in space. And it's like an active set. And I kind of liked it. It made me wish, though, that it was a little more in focus. This is just like a personal thing, not really a criticism. But I always like the background sets on The Expanse. I think they're really vivid and interesting and detailed. Watching Mando, I was like, oh, I wish I could kind of like invest a little more time in like what's going on behind the action. You know, I think that kind of enriches your world. But that's just a personal preference, not a criticism. As all the pieces are coming into play, this is like the heist movie episode of Mando, which I was like, that's interesting, but this show is so tonally inconsistent. Episode 4 was just so cutesy. 5 was, a complete throwaway. And now we're like in some kind of like Scorsese-esque like heist movie in space. It's weird. It's weird how they just kind of try different things. I think it would work if it was like a Black Mirror like anthology, but it having what passes for a relative through line story, it just makes it feel kind of disjointed. And you know, I think if they didn't have the connecting through line story, it might make it more interesting. But them trying to accomplish both, it just doesn't work. I'm sorry, it doesn't. I will say that the dialogue in this one was probably the slickest, and you know, most like cinematic, like most like professional sounding. There's like the moment where Mando is negotiating with the or not negotiating, but he's getting the skinny from the bearded guy on the space station, and Mando kind of goes like this, but it's behind the mask, and the guy goes, "What's with the look?" And I thought that was funny. I thought that was a funny line considering you can't see his face. It's like, okay, that's a good little joke. Get it? He's in a mask. And then when he's introducing the crew and just like hearing Burr, like Bill Burr, like right away, is just like, that's hilarious. Like it just made me laugh just hearing him. It's just funny. Just funny to see him. It's so weird to see Burr in Star Wars, but it's like, it's funny. Just like he's so likable. So as the story's kind of like being set in motion, I'm starting to get this kind of like, it's like a Michael Mann heist movie, heat in space. And I'm starting to kind of like it more this time around. I was surprised how much I was like, oh, I actually kind of am like digging this. You know, I'm enjoying this. No criticisms are coming to mind. I'm just kind of like, oh, I like this. This is enjoyable. And then, and Mando has this, when he's meeting Burr's character, he has this little snarky joke about how stormtroopers can't shoot, and Burr's like, I wasn't a stormtrooper, smartass. That actually is kind of funny. Like, that I think is a kind of fan service that works, because the fans are aware that stormtroopers always miss. And then it would make sense that would kind of translate in universe. And then you kind of acknowledge it. That's clever. That's not just like, hey, remember the thing? It's the thing. Look at the thing. It was like a take on it, like a joke, like, oh, okay, that's funny. All right, yeah, it works. Yeah, but then when Burr is talking to Mando, he references Canto Bite, which was really ill-advised. It's like, oh, don't remind us, dude. Don't do that. I know we got to keep everything in universe, but that's no. Don't bring us back there, please. One thing I did like was the planning of the heist. Was how they have a plan with like the hyperdrive. Like they're like, okay, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do this maneuver and like come around here and then we'll land, before he'll track us. I mean, I don't know how that makes sense, but I like that. Like they're in world, it made sense. It's like, oh, it'll be super close and we'll do this time. Like, oh, okay, I like that. I thought that was clever. It was kind of like a cool way to deal with it. Because I think in the Star Wars universe they've established that they can track ships that come out of hyperdrive. So it's like, it leaves like a energy signature or something like that. But if they do it just right, then they can sneak in. It's like, oh, clever. All right. I like that. I thought that was good. And I noticed all throughout this setup, something that was really impressive was the pace was restrained. Like it was restrained. It didn't force any action where it didn't need to go. Just kind of setting all the action up, but it still moved. It still had like a swiftness to it, which I was like, okay, I'm in. I mean, yeah, and the script was just kind of solid all around thus far. And Burr was great. Burr kind of being this antagonist to Mando was good. It was funny. Him fucking with Baby Yoda and him just kind of being like that Boston prick. It worked in the show. But when they did reveal Baby Yoda, I thought it was a cool moment. It was kind of like this sudden, like, oh, I forgot about Baby Yoda. And then when they reveal him like that, it's like, oh, right. Yeah, like this is kind of a thing. And then they're all like, what's going on with this? And Mando's trying to like downplay it. And that's something I will say about this episode, to its credit. Very little Baby Yoda, which I think, considering how much we've had recently, it was nice to see a restrained amount of Baby Yoda. And when they come out of hyperdrive and the ship like clanging around and Baby Yoda falls, I'm like, Baby Yoda. Like you get concerned for it. And I think that now that it's like episode 6, it is kind of nice to see that Mando cares about Baby Yoda. There's like this paternal relationship between the two of them. It's like, I still think it's kind of ridiculous that he just keeps bringing this baby into very dangerous situations. But it's kind of cool. Like it's nice to see. And one thing I thought that was like a sharp bit of storytelling was when they do lock onto the ship and they open the hatch and they're going down. The kind of shared look amongst the crew that Mando isn't privy to. They're kind of like, yeah, he's like, oh, this isn't quite what it seems. This isn't going to necessarily be a cakewalk. This might, it's kind of like, oh, there's some nefarious energy here. Which I thought was like, oh, that's interesting. And Burr, like his movements with like the gunslinging and shit was actually pretty solid. He walked very confidently. Like he looked, around, like he seemed comfortable in the role. Like he probably did train for it, but it just seemed like, yeah, it worked. It fit him. It suit him. And then just as, when they're on the ship, I liked how the tension was rising. They're kind of sneaking around, waiting for something to happen. And I really liked the sets. The prison sets looked really good. It looked very like Republic. It looked very Republic, which I liked. Clean, white, sterile. I thought that was cool. I don't know if these have been shown in the sequel trilogy or not, because I've only seen The Force Awakens, and everything else I've just watched coverage of because I just can't bring myself to do it. Because it just no. I shan't and I won't. I appreciated that the security droids on this ship were different. That it wasn't like, oh, hey, remember the friggin' security droids from the first ones? It was like some new thing. It was like, that makes sense. I like that. So it didn't feel like it was pandering, and it was a new kind of droid, which was pretty cool. I mean, they were still pretty disposable, but I liked it. I thought it was good. And speaking of which, Mando just shredding like a crew of 6 of them was pretty dope. I thought that was cool. The way they did it. And then the final like death blow to the last guy, and they put like a big hole through his droid head. yeah, like so far, this is shaping up pretty good. I'm interested in it. It's still just a side quest thus far. I mean, there is nothing in this is tied into the like a bigger story. It's all just untethered to a major through line. It's just standalone. And that made me just think of a conversation I had with someone who worked on The Mandalorian. And he was saying about the first season, because he worked in the effects department. He said when he was watching the show or watching the footage, he was like, where are all the things that we shot? I think this was like referring to like a little earlier on in the season, which to me indicates that maybe the inconsistencies in this show are the result of multiple forces kind of mixing things up and trying to reshape and reform. And they're just kind of clinging on desperately to keeping some kind of a story, which is maybe why nothing really connects. They move down after Mando takes out all the droids. They move down the prison ship and they come across like the bridge. And it turns out that there actually is a human being in there. And they kind of, all the bad guys don't really care. They sort of surround him. And Burr's got this great line where he's like, nice shoes. Matches his belt. So I thought that was funny. Nice chance to emasculate the guy like before they murder him. So then the Republic guys like in a standoff with all the bandit guys, which was, I mean, I thought worked pretty well. It was pretty interesting. It ratcheted up the tension. The one thing though that I was like, why are there no more guard droids coming? Like they just wiped out like 6 of them. They have no way of communicating with the other droids. That didn't set off an alarm. And just kind of like, wait, and they're just sort of taking their time, like talking them through that. Even if the guards don't communicate in that way, you'd think that they would be concerned that they might, that like at any moment, a bunch of droids are going to burst in the door and kill you all. Like, it kind of doesn't make any sense. So they eventually kill the Republic guard. He sets off a tracker thing that brings a bunch of Republic ships down on him. Now, it's a bit of a contrived plot device because why on earth would that be a handheld device? Like, why wouldn't it just be a beacon on the ship? And what if you smash that device? Do they still come to the last known point? What if you move the ship? That seems sort of stupid. No, I'll say at this point, I didn't think it was stupid. I was just kind of like, huh? And then where the plot ends up going, it's like, oh, that's why they made it handheld. Like, all right. I mean, it's a bit of a contrivance. But anyway, they kill the Republic guy and he sets off this thing. And this is where we run into a pretty big problem. They set a 20-minute time, like a 20-minute ticking clock that New Republic ships are descending on their position and they'll be there in 20 minutes. I was like, oh, that seems kind of fast, but that's the time clock. So they got 20 minutes. So then they run down the hallway and they go to they go to the prison cell that they're trying to bust their buddy out of. And right off the bat, 5 minutes is shaved off the clock. They're like, you have 15 minutes left. I was like, whoa, that was really fast. So then they open the door. The guy that they're trying to save, is like, hey, what's up, buddy? And they double cross Mando and they throw him in the prison cell, right? Okay, Mando got double crossed. I'll tell you, at that moment, though, I was like, oh, no, baby Yoda. Because I just imagined them like running to the ship and taking off, right? So I was like, oh, yeah, I was like, it kind of like it ratcheted up the anxiety. But I had very little reason to fear anxiety because 2 reasons. One, Mando solved his predicament in that jail cell within what seemed like seconds. And that ticking clock, well, it started ticking a whole lot slower to an absurdly slow point. They gave you 20 minutes. They shaved off 5 within seconds. And then that 15 minutes spreads out over the remainder of the episode. And I don't even think we were halfway through at that point. Why? You had every opportunity. Like that line about 20 minutes is done in ADR. The droid says it and he's not even on screen. So that was a line done in a studio. You could have changed it to 45, 55 an hour. Why would you make it 20, shave off 5 minutes, and then proceed to take the whole rest of the episode just take so long? It was like you introduced this ticking clock narrative and then you just abandoned it. It's like that was your device. It wasn't intrinsic to the plot. You put it there. You could have extended the time. You just didn't want to go back and fix that one line? Are you serious? The characters don't even seem to be concerned with the ticking clock anymore. It's not even like you're like, all right, we're stretching it out. They're like tiptoeing around. They're taking their time. They're having like conversations they don't have the time to have at a pace that they can't afford. What? You told me this is happening, and now you're like, well, I mean, it's happening, but it's going to happen on my own. It's like, whoa, why? What? So Mando gets out of his cell, and then he gets back to the bridge, and he like separates the crew so that they kind of have to wander in two separate groups. And whatever. It's at this point, I'm like, it got. I think from this point on, it's contrived. Like I thought it would have been cool if they got to the ship and left, and then Mando had to like take a escape pod or something, or hijack one of those Republic ships to go track down Baby Yoda, something like that. Like just the fact that they set this tight window and a really easy escape for the bad guys, and then like, no, not so fast. Mando like presses a button, and these doors go down. And now they can't get out. And it's like, oh, now we have to have this like cat and mouse game with the bandits and Mando, which took way too long and, contradicted your own plot device, your own structure. So the big guy, while in the process of tracking down Mando, gets to the security office room and then doesn't undo the security measures that Mando put in there. He's like, where are you? What are your motivations? To kill Mando or to get the hell out of there? I think it's probably to get the hell out of there. But, the story wants it to play it like he wants to kill Mando. So him and Mando have this big fight, which was pretty good. I mean, it was cool. And Mando like blasts him in the face with a flamethrower, and it doesn't do anything because he's like a devil guy, which I was like, okay, that was. And then they give you this kind of fake out where you think he gets killed in a door. Later revealed that he did not die, which I was like, okay, I don't know. I mean, whatever. So Mando manages to defeat all the bad guys one by one on this ship. Then he confronts the guy that they came there to capture, whatever his fucking name is. And he's like, hey, take me in. You still get your money. You got a code, right? And he's like, oh, okay, good call. And so he brings him in. And then the droid, in the meantime, has become a kind of obsessed or very focused on murdering Baby Yoda for reasons that are very unclear. He gets like a holographic message from Carl Weathers' character who kind of explains the situation, but he says, bring the target to me, which I assume this droid would deduce that means there's money attached to this particular prize. But no, he decides, I think we should kill a defenseless baby. Okay. Weird. So right as he's about to do it, Mando comes on the ship and shoots him in the back and drops him dead. I will say in this instance, it actually really worked. Like Mando, Mando's coming onto the ship, and so it's just a matter of timing that he gets there right before Baby Yoda gets shot. Perfect. Completely unlike the Cara Dune shooting the bounty hunter sniper in the woods mechanic, which had no reason to believe that could be like anything could have happened. You could have had, the rifle backfired in his face. God came down and ripped his head off and tore him into shreds and threw him into the atmosphere. Like you just were like, well, whatever I want to do is what I'm going to do. Ugh. So in this instance, the shoot from the back right before you kill the target thing worked. The first time, no. So then Mando gets back to the space station, drops off the bounty guy or whatever, the guy that they rescued, takes the money, doesn't check it, which I don't know why. Like he got like a bag, but he didn't even like open it up and look in it. It was the whole time I'm thinking like, oh, there's a bomb in there, or some kind of a tracking device or something. Like just check the fucking money. It's weird, but so he does, and then as Mando leaves, and the guy who like runs the space station is like, we got him, kill him, and they send a gunship after Mando. But Mando was one step ahead of him. He put the tracking device thing that had the Republic ships honed in on it right in that guy's pocket. So the X-Wings come and destroy the space station, and Mando just slips away into hyperspeed. Do I need to lay out to you how fucking stupid that is? You introduced that they had 20 minutes at like the halfway point. Then you shaved off 5 minutes. Then you spent the entire third act essentially with them ding, 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 ooh, ding, 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 huh? Like tiptoeing around this ship with like blasters out, having long drawn out fights. Then Mando somehow disarms and incapacitates all three of them and then gets them all into a prison cell individually, somehow gets on his ship, leaves, travels in hyperspace, gets the money, talks to the guy, plants the tracker, leaves, and then the X-Wings show up. What? I mean, I know space-time is not constant, but I think you're taking a little bit of liberties there with a clock. A little bit. I mean, you said if you had just, you could have just made that more plausible by saying it was an hour. But you wanted the attention of the ticking clock, but then you wanted to do whatever you wanted to do for the rest of the episode. And like, that's piss poor writing. That's just sloppy. You're like, oh, it's 20 minutes. Oh, well, the audience is stupid. They won't care. It's like, wow. All right. No, not actually. We do notice, we do care. And even if we're not conscious of it, it's like you just alleviate the tension. You're like, oh, well, I guess the Republic will come or they won't come. It's like, no, man, adhere to the mechanics you introduced. Like, you told me it's a 20-minute ticking clock. I didn't tell you that. It wasn't like I picked this adventure and we have to stick with my choices. You're the one who wrote the script. You're the one who said 20 minutes. Well, why the fuck did you abandon it then? You could have gone back and changed it. Oh, 45 minutes. Or whatever, figured out a way how that made sense, like a distress signal, or like break up the pattern, or like, oh, well, now it'll take longer. Something. You didn't do any of that. You just were like, whatever. Time's relative. I don't give a fuck. So that's why ultimately I'll give this episode a B. I think a B minus, because by the end, the second half, I just didn't care. I didn't give a shit. You know, I was like, all right, like you did a great job of pacing and establishing characters and the plot development and setting the stage. Really good. And they did it to about the point where Mando gets locked up. Then the second half is just stupid. Like, it's like Mando breaks out immediately. Like, oh, well, that was easy. And then like he locks down the door. Oh, nothing they can do. And they cut off communications to the ship with the droid, which that's not really explained. And then there was also no effort made by the bandits to try to override any of that. They were just like, well, I guess we just have to kill Mando. It's like, what does he have, like a switch attached to his heart? When you murder him, then everything will go back to normal. It's just silly. You know, like they didn't try to problem solve. They weren't like, oh, let's try to get through the door or whatever. Like, no, we just got to kill Mando. That's the end of the. It's like you have decent balls in the air, but then like you just drop them all and you're like, well, I'll just throw that one up when I want and that one up when I want. It's like, no, you gotta make them all, you gotta juggle. You gotta make the show work. So B minus, not terrible, good dialogue, good setup, but ultimately meaningless. Ultimately a completely meaningless episode, because nothing happened in this episode that affects the overall story. Unless these characters come back in some meaningful way. But even then, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. And B, it doesn't, like, so what? Nothing changed with Baby Yoda. Nothing changed with the bounty hunters. No new information was introduced. Nothing. You could skip this whole episode and you could still have as much knowledge about the overall story as, you know, someone who as someone who's seen it. Like, it's just, geez, man, that's just, I don't understand like how this happens. I don't get what they're trying to do. Like, is this a mistake, or do they not care? Or are they like, no, this will work. Like, just giving you like little bits of a story, but Adventure of the Week will set the stage, and then season 2 we're really going to tell a story. I don't get what they're doing or why. And this was the last episode I ever watched. I stopped after this. I was just like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need to see anymore. Like, everything's a side quest, everything's stupid, nothing's worth watching. But now for the sake of this review, I am going to watch the next 2 episodes and into the next season. So we'll see how I feel about it. But I mean, it's just not compelling. And I'm happy it just kind of lies there. I'm happy it's not great. The thing is, it's I think Rags from EFAB pointed out it's not offensively bad. And he's right. It's not offensively bad. It doesn't undo anything that came before it. It doesn't have any like, talons or anything. It's not, going after white men or anything stupid like that. It's just not good. It's just flat out not good. It's just ill-conceived, rushed, and all over the place tonally. I don't know. I mean, there's enough there to make something good, but it doesn't sound like it's going to happen based on the rumors that are coming off that set. So I don't know. We'll see. That's going to do it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I am Matt from Foul Ball Productions. You're the audience. You're awesome. Thank you so much for watching. Please press that like button if you have not. It means a lot. I know we're all sick of hearing of it. Every single creator says it, but there's a reason. It's very important that we get your likes and your subscriptions so that our channel can grow. YouTube will throw us into the algorithm and more people will see us. That's our currency in this YouTube world. So thank you so much for being a participant in that, and I hope to see you all soon. Bye for now.